Whatever. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Check Your Six, the podcast dedicated to the Collegiate Rainbow Six League, as well as commentary on the U.S. Nationals, Pro League, and all the roster shenanigans that seems to happen within this game. Welcome back, Syntax, my co-host and former Teddy AMU player. So he's the skill and color commentary on this, and I'm just the one who puts it all together and makes it possible to listen to. So welcome back.
Hey, what's up, man?
Not much. Got in a chance to watch some of the Pro League matches going on right now, and I will leave that not to spoil people right now, but I will mention more of it at the end of the podcast, or end of the stream. So be ready for your non-spoiler breaking ears if you're worried about that.
Yeah, I'm ready for that.
As far as the week goes, what I'm excited about is that we actually have the majority of the CR6 Premier League matches having been played this week, and there's only been 3 that haven't. So we can actually start looking at how these matches are breaking down, and even going back to last week's rounds, and start seeing some more of that stack ranking and how these teams actually measure up to one another. I'm going to switch on over to the score screen. Fancy noises. And what we can see here is University of Cincinnati showing up against Auburn in a hard-fought battle, 2-1. Longhorn Gaming gaining a lot of momentum. They have seemingly been on a strong run since, I believe they were a 3-1 team in Phase 1. So, but I believe they're 2-0 this time around.
No, they actually lost their first match, so they
lost
1-1.
Never mind. Screw that momentum. They don't have it. I can't say that about San Jose, though.
San Jose is 2-0.
Yeah, San Jose is 2-0, and ASU Maroon coming out of the woodwork. I don't remember much about Arizona State last year, but I know that San Jose has been keeping up a reputation and keeping up a lot of the competitive spirit.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad that some schools are keeping up with the competitive spirit these days.
UCF, I believe that's California, University of California, Fullerton.
UCF is actually, I believe it's Central Florida.
Oh, that's Central Florida. I was wondering where they were. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And so Central Florida being the ones who kind of dropped the ball against, what was it, Akron last year? The 1 seed versus the 16 seed.
I believe so, yeah.
So that's good to see them back. I was wondering where they were, and I thought it was weird that I didn't see any Florida teams this season. That makes a whole lot more sense. Embry-Riddle haven't played yet against Ohio State. University of Florida, 0-2 against Akron. Tennessee Tech. I don't remember them being in the league last year either. But then again, 210 teams, I'm not sure I can be held accountable for remembering all of them. And we actually...
All
go
the
ahead.
teams from last semester, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, from last semester.
Esports Iowa was last semester. Obviously CSLUB or CSULB from last semester. British Columbia was here last semester. Grand Canyon was there last semester. Embry-Riddle was here last semester. A lot of these teams are actually starting to get multiple teams. So
Yeah.
the schools themselves were participating last semester. I don't know which teams are which this semester, since they're all kind of renaming their teams different colors and letters and words. So
Yeah. And now that the Premier League is really taking form, and I'm looking at these names, it's not just Texas A&M with multiple teams. We've got UGA Black and UGA Red. We've got Bronco Esports Green and Bronco Esports Gold. So six at least.
Gold.
Yeah, and I think Embry-Riddle's second team isn't in Premier League. Yeah. So like CU Boulder, they have CU Boulder Gold that's in the Open Division, and so they have a Premier and an Open Division team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had a third team out there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the schools have multiple teams this season, but I believe A&M is the only one that has two teams in the Premier League. I think we talked about that last week, though.
Yeah, and that's what I was just saying. Like Bronco Esports, number 12 on the score sheet, Bronco Esports Green, and then Bronco Esports Gold, number 16. They have two teams in here. And I'm assuming UGA Black is the same as UGA Red, same school at least. So University of Georgia is my assumption.
Okay.
So we have 6 teams in total that are in the Premier League that come from 3 different schools.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that's starting to paint a very competitive picture.
Yeah, it really is. And with all these teams emerging, obviously it shows the immense growth that this league is going to have in the future, as more and more schools develop multiple teams. Then you're going to start to see a lot more competition in not only the Premier League, but the other leagues as well. So, like for instance, next season we probably might see more than 16 teams in the Premier League, or unless they do keep it 16, and which would then actually increase the amount of competition. That's going to be had to get into the Premier League, because now you've got to fight even more teams to secure one of these 6.
Yeah, and one thing I know the other games have done is cut down on how many teams a school can have be representing the same school. So you might have to see like, oh, okay, well you have 2 teams that qualify for Premier League. Well, now you have to do a best of 1 or a best of 3 to see which team actually goes into the Premier, so that they can highlight different schools. Because I mean, last thing Texas A&M wants is having like 6 teams in Premier League, and then everyone else going like, oh, it's just Texas A&M. They can choose basically how the rest of the season goes.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think that would be bad if some schools had like more than 2 teams in the Premier League, because then you kind of monopolize the competition, and then you can kind of dictate who actually wins the league. But
because I mean, then you can think like, now you not only have like better scrim partners, but you have people feeding information on all of your other opponents ahead of time. So it's a huge information advantage. And I mean, in a game like Rainbow Six, that's all about intel. You take that intel out of the match and you start having that metadata. It just gives you a significant advantage over everyone. So I imagine we might see a rule change going into the spring semester season.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a rule or two pop up about the amount of teams that are allowed from one school to enter the Premier League.
Enough of that. I want to go to one of the one match that I saw that, one, surprises me, 2, makes me very, very, very excited, and that's row number 10, University of Houston, last season's winners, versus Colorado University, Boulder Black, and Boulder 2-0'd them.
Boulder 2-0'd
University of Houston.
University of Houston. See, that is that surprises me as well. That is I'm a little baffled by that. Which either let's see here. Let's take a look at this map. Let me view the roster for Houston here. See, this actually. Okay, I'm a little confused. I think they have the roster wrong because I know. Okay, so there's two. Okay, so there's two players on this roster, right? One is called Macy Jesus, which I know is Jesus, one of Jesus's alt, if not his main. But there's also another player called Jesus.Christ, and I don't know if that is the same player's accounts.
Got it.
Or one of their players renamed to kind of keep the meme alive. But that's a little concerning in my opinion. But either way, they lost. So Panda and Maverick and Jesus are three of the original Houston squad from last season that beat us in the grand finals. So that's very surprising to see them lose against Boulder.
Yeah, I want to go back to Boulder's matchup last week and see how they did. And they 2-0'd Embry-Riddle gold last week.
That I don't think I'm too surprised. I know Embry-Riddle is a good team, but I know some of these, like both of Houston and Boulder, are both better teams. So I'm not all that surprised about that win.
Boulder Black went 3-1 in phase 1. So, I mean, they did lose to someone. I'm curious to see who they lost to. But that's besides the case. Like, the fact that they're standing up to University of Houston, whose roster was mostly maintained, and they clearly only took people who were very serious about it, was willing to practice as hard as they did last season, and that they felt that they could have confidence in going into the season, and they've had success. I mean, they're in the Premier League, so they did well enough. Well, I mean, they got the bye into the Premier League. That's right. So we really don't know how strong this roster is.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true. We do not know. I guess we find out.
I mean, University of Houston, they won their first match against FIU last week, 2-0. So they have something going on.
Okay. Yeah. It could be that they haven't played in a long time, so they are rusty, or these Boulder guys are hungry, and they have been practicing more than Houston. It could be a little bit of both. We don't know, but I know that Boulder has been scrimming A&M Alpha team quite a bit. The reason I know that's because I recognize Olvin's name. And I know that I'm in the group chat with the A&M Alpha guys, and they're always talking about, we're scrimming Olvin's squad, So that's the reason I know that name. So I know that they've been scrimming A&M Alpha quite a bit. So
and for A&M to take them seriously as a scrimming partner, like that says something.
Yeah, that does say something. So maybe we'll see some serious stuff out of them in the coming weeks.
So now my most favored matchup to see right now would probably be CU Boulder Black versus A&M Alpha.
Yeah, pretty much. That'd be a really interesting match, considering they scrim all the time. So I think they both know what they're going to be doing.
I think aside from that, I'm looking forward to the two Bronco. Actually, you know what? I want to see the two A&M matchups, the two Bronco esports matchups, and the two UGA teams match up against each other. I want to see like if the underdog team, the B team, has like learned anything, or if they've really figured out a way to approach the A team's strategies, or if the A team just really has them beat.
Are you talking about A&M, Bravo?
I mean A&M, the Broncos, and UGA. Like I want to see those mirror matches come up because those are going to be the teams that know each other the best.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, those would be some good matches to see.
Aside from that, I'm really curious about San Jose and University of Cincinnati. I feel like I've been watching them win time and time again over the last 6 weeks. So I'm really curious to see how those stack up. I mean, San Jose's 2-0, UW Whitewater, I think that's Wisconsin.
Yes.
So then, like, a good number of 2-0 teams, so 8 at this point, with an opportunity for a couple more to show up. Yeah, so like UBC Gold or Embry Riddle Gold, either one of them could show up. Or no, sorry, no one else can show up as 2-0. Never mind. So it's just those 8 teams.
I'm looking at the Iowa State roster because I was looking at the UW Whitewater for match versus Iowa State. There's a guy on the Iowa State team. His name is 1-800-GOOD-NIGHT. The reason I laugh is because I was playing ranked the other day. I played ranked against a guy called, his name was 1-800-GOOD-NIGHT. I remember laughing at that in the ranked game as well.
Hey, now you know where he's at. How good was he?
We won that match. Yeah.
There you go.
He challenged me in some spots that he should. And
so he was on the other team.
Yeah, he was on the enemy team. Yeah, and he dialed his own phone number a couple times.
Oh snap!
I'm just kidding. If you're listening, I don't mean those things.
He really does. He really just.
I'm not. Well, okay. I was gonna say I'm not gonna tell you my in-game name, but obviously you can freaking see it if you're watching my stream. So.
There you go.
But I go by a couple names. I've got a couple different. You may see me on this one. I may be hidden on another one. So I'm sneaky like that.
Aside from that, I mean, we're starting like the number of winners is whittling down. 8 of the 16 or 8 of the 32 are undefeated in 2 weeks. The rest, I mean, the majority of the league, of the Premier League, is 1-1, and with room for more of that to grow. And only a few teams are 0-2. So there's a huge, tight group of competition here where it's almost like it can be anyone's games up to this point. There might be a few star-studded lineups like Texas A&M Alpha or CU Boulder Black or San Jose. Like some of those teams might start floating and like really separating themselves in like the top 1, 2, 3. But I don't think anyone else is really setting themselves aside as being safe as a dominant team.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. I don't think anyone has actually shown that they are 2 steps ahead of anyone else. Everyone's kind of in the same issue boat right now. We'll have to get more numbers in to see how the stats normalize a little bit more. So I think maybe in like 3 weeks we'll be able to see like who is the dominant team and who's not. So
yeah, when we get into the playoffs, when we get the seeded 30 or 64 teams, the top 32 from the main division as well, joining the Premier League and really starting to shake things up. we're going to be able to really start putting power numbers to the Premier League and saying like these were the teams that showed up in the first 4 weeks, and so they got the privilege of being in the Premier. But do they deserve that spot? Did they really truly earn it, or did they just happen to get lucky with their matchups in Phase One? It's going to be interesting to see of the top 32 from the Premier League who and how far they go into the playoffs, and how many of them get eliminated by the teams coming from the main division. And just overall seeing like what's the competitive picture of CR6 at the highest echelon look like.
Yeah, that's true. It's going to be in the later phases that the matches are going to start getting really good, and I'm actually really excited when all the top of the top teams start playing each other for like the quarters and the semis.
Yeah.
And obviously the finals.
And I actually had an opportunity to reach out to CU Boulder Gold, I believe it was. Yeah, Boulder Gold, their team in the Open Division, and I saw that they were streaming their match against York University, and so I reached out to them, and I was able to get a post-game message from them about how their matchup went and how their season is gone. So let me play that real quick.
Hello, I'm Arctic, and I'm the IGL for the CU Boulder R6 Gold team. And I guess overall the season's been going pretty well. We've had a really hard start at the beginning. It was a little bit rocky for our first game. Then our next games after that, we just started getting more synergy. We started working together a lot more, doing practices. We did a couple of LAN events as well. And I think we're really starting to get together. And in the end, it's all about having fun. And I wouldn't trade the guys for anything, really, honestly. And yeah, the game today was a little bit of a rough one, but unfortunately, we did get 2-0'd. But there's always room for improvement. Definitely, we were hoping to make it with the black team to the Premier League, but we're in open bracket, which is still really good right now. We're currently 2-2. Now we're 2-3, but we're gonna overall be able to keep on improving, and we'll see you guys in grand finals.
I liked the attitude coming from that and the overall approach. I mean, saying that they've gone to some LAN events and that they're practicing and they're having fun with it, and like there's obviously even team synergy going on where Arctic's saying like I wouldn't trade the guys for anything, and like that just sounds like a good solid group to be building up. And as CU Boulder Black is in the Premier League and they're having success there, they have a great resource for CU Boulder Gold to be playing with and for learning from, and gathering information on other Premier League teams who might also have other teams throughout the divisions, whether it's open or main. But I think this is an interesting perspective, is that this team's in open division, but they have the opportunity to be in the top part of open division and go into the other playoffs that are going to be happening. So it's the bottom half of main, the bottom 32 teams of main, and then the top 32 teams of open division will go into a separate playoff. So we'll actually get to see how deep CU Boulder Gold can go if they can get into playoffs.
Yeah, and what he said is pretty much like what this league is all about. Is playing and having fun with it, and making friends, and getting into the competitive spirit and playing with their schools and all that stuff, and hearing them talk about how much fun they're having, and having this team that they wouldn't exchange for the world. That's the epitome of this league, and what it should all be about. So it's good to hear. It's good to hear that.
And I watched some of their match last night, and it was actually impressive how much they were calling out, how communicative they were, how much fun they were having, and then just being able to talk strategy even in the moment. And like I thought, honestly, I was watching the CU Boulder Black team, because I remember seeing CU Boulder versus York, and I'm like, oh, I know CU Boulder's in Premier, and the level of communication I thought was far more than what I thought of like a B team really having. Like they were clear, concise, and to the point of what that strategy was meaning to be. And it just sounded like they were having, it almost sounded like second nature to them. So they've put in some hours working together on their communication and their strategies.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And so I will share the VOD link with you, and maybe next week we can come back and have a little commentary on that, just to share with the podcast community just about how that match went, and maybe even give some more props to CU Boulder Gold as they represented that open division.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can do that.
Moving on, we had a little bit of drama this last week with the relegation teams and the new teams moving into the Pro League, specifically Obey Alliance and Rogue. Now, last week Rogue was relegated out of Pro League and Obey took their spot, but there was a bit of shuffling that happened, and I noticed this on Twitter. It was just a couple of comments from one of the players on Obey who was suddenly no longer on Obey's roster, and they found out over Twitter. So what can you tell us about that, Syntax?
Okay, so 2 nights ago, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was 2 nights ago. There was all of a sudden some talk on Twitter saying that Rogue decided to buy out the Obey roster, and they were going to drop Abuna and Fozo off the Obey roster and switch them out for Vertical and Easily from the Rogue roster. So they're going to have the 3 Obey players and the 2 former Rogue players, and that's going to be the new Rogue roster to get back into PL. Now, let's talk about this at face value for a moment. This would obviously be the cheapest way to get back into the Pro League. Now, why would they care about getting back into Pro League so fast? Well, the reason behind that is because they have the in-game skins, the charm, all that stuff, and they only will keep that if they're in the Pro League. They want to be able to keep all that stuff that they have tied to the game and keep making that money off of that merchandise. So they need to get back into Pro League as quick as possible. Now, the truth of the matter, the owner of Obey put out on Twitter, he's saying that, and I quote, where is the, let me pull up the Twitter page real quick. Okay, and I quote, "All of this R6 stuff went on while I was asleep last night. I'll issue a statement about it later. I'll issue a statement about it later when I have an understanding of what went on. I think there are a few misunderstandings based off what little I've been told so far." And then people are saying, oh, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And he replied to some of the guys, as opposed to negative, that's a rumor.
Okay.
And then he says, "This has nothing to do with R6. There's no official statement to be made. Players are still playing for Obey. The stuff that was leaked was a hypothetical question another org asked Ubisoft, but no talks have been had." Now, no official statement has been put out saying whether or not this has been true, or whether if it's true or not. All I'm going off of is what this guy is saying over Twitter. Maybe it is, and maybe he's trying to deny it. But I honestly don't think this is true, because the reason I don't think this is true is because the Eclipse, when all this stuff went out, and okay, so yeah, so Eclipse tweeted out, he goes, "This is the first time I'm hearing about this, and it's over Twitter."
Yeah.
So he is pretty much saying that he found out he's getting dropped by other people talking about it on Twitter,
Right.
which is garbage. If it's very unprofessional and very scumbaggy of an organization to not even tell the player before this stuff kind of gets out on social media. And how does it get out on social media so fast?
Right.
If an organization is talking about it behind closed doors, obviously, because that's what they do. If they drop them, they're gonna find out they got dropped before all that stuff gets leaked out on Twitter. So it kind of blows my mind that, like, it went from, two or three guys talking in a room saying, okay, these are the kind of changes that we're going to make, blah, 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 these people are going to get dropped. How did that private conversation between those three people all of a sudden get spread onto Twitter and then spread like wildfire, It really leads me to believe that this was exactly what this guy is saying on Twitter. It was just a hypothetical question somebody asked over Twitter, and somebody saw it and started retweeting it, and it just kept getting retweeted and retweeted and retweeted, and it just spread like wildfire. And then it kind of it blew out of proportion, and then everybody just believed it. So honestly, we're all going to have to wait until official statements are put out by both organizations, both Rogue and both Obey, stating that this is all true.
Yeah.
If it is true, let's talk about if it is true. Let's say it is true, right? Not only was this shitty of Rogue to do, very unprofessional, unbecoming of a professional organization to do this. I will not be supporting Rogue from here on out.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to. Rogue is. I'm taking everything Rogue off all my accounts. Not that I have anything Rogue on, anyways, but also the players of Obey. They're interesting. They're interesting folk. A lot of them actually have been. I mean, not that this is like relevant, but they were caught red-handed multiple times, like stream sniping big streamers.
Oh, jeez.
On purpose.
That doesn't help their case.
Yeah, so like, obviously Rogue isn't purposely like backing them. Isn't purposely like backing them if they did that or not. But like the fact that like those players are now officially associated with Rogue. Sorry, but I'm not gonna associate myself with Rogue.
Right.
If those people are associated with them, I'm not associating myself with them. So,
and I mean, it's entirely possible that fans may not also appreciate this advance by Rogue, and they could go back to Ubisoft and say, I want my money back. I don't want this Rogue Pro League set. I want credit back to get this other one. Because I don't appreciate this stuff. Like it depends on how aware the players are and the fans are and everything, but it's entirely possible.
Yeah, it is. And like also what I think is really shitty too is the fact that like these players, like they played together for so long and they worked so incredibly hard to make it into Pro League. And then those players not even having a chance to play a Pro League match.
That's so devastating.
That sucks. Working your ass off to get to the professional league, and then someone buys your roster, and then them telling you you're off the roster. That sucks. That would destroy me. And I'm sure it destroyed. Assuming this is all true.
Right.
It is. It's destroying these guys. And I think these guys think that it's true as of right now. Because I don't think anyone has said otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, if there's more backroom conversations being had by the organizations and trying to do damage control and everything, the longer they let this go, the more it just seems like it's actually true. And what are Abunai and who's the other player who's dropped? Foza. What are they supposed to be doing right now? Like they can't be practicing with the team. They can't be like,
well,
okay.
These changes aren't going to happen until later. So like obviously, like if this stuff is actually happening, then like contracts have to be signed, and all sorts of paperwork has to be signed and moves and all that stuff. So as of right now, until all those changes happen, the teams play with each other.
I don't know if like unless I was like if I was Abunai or Fazo and unless the Obey Alliance owner came to me and said you're still on the roster, we're just having other conversations and I have no idea how this started, and if that person is being honest in that moment, then sure, go play as that team that won the right to be in the pro league. But if there's been no assurances, even face to face or even over a phone call, man, I don't know if I show up for practice, if I show up for scrims. Being that I would be one of the people on the out and possibly kicked from the roster, like that alone, that hypothetical that it could have happened, or it's just a conversation in the back room kind of thing. Like, how shitty does that make you feel if you were the one on the bottom? It wasn't like any of those other three were there. It's just two, and they were specifically named. It would be different if they were saying, "Oh, drop two players for easily and vertical," but not knowing who those two were.
Yeah, and unfortunately, due to contractual obligations, they still have to show up for practice. They still have to play with the team, especially if they want to get paid. Even Challenger League teams do get paid if they're with an organization. So, I mean, if he wants to get paid until that day that the day comes, he's still going to participate in everything. So,
There's man, we got to do better. Like, if there's anything going on like this, we've got to do better. And I mean, all the other major esports who have been in existence for more than the 3 years that Rainbow Six has really been around, like League, CS:GO, Dota, all of those have gone through fluctuations like this, where there's just been a shady deal, a shady trade, one thing or another happened, and hopefully those leagues have sorted it out, and there's a little bit more professionalism around it. I kind of see that this is one of those moments where it's being figured out for the Rainbow Six community.
Yeah. A lot of interesting things are happening in the Rainbow Six community lately, and a lot of it is just very iffy. To say the least. Especially with the whole Pro League finals situation with Ninjas in Pajamas and FaZe.
With the visa issues?
Yeah.
Visas have been eating up esports teams and organizations for years now. So, again, as an industry as a whole, got to figure something out to make this better, because I know for a fact that destroyed a number of Latin American teams in Heroes of the Storm as they went into international competitions, like subbing entire teams because one team couldn't get a visa while another team from the same country could. So that's sketchy, just as usual. But again, as esports gains acceptance, we'll be having less and less of these issues.
Yeah, and I think FaZe was able to get, so FaZe only had one person that couldn't get the visa, so I think they were able to sub out that person, obviously because they played Dark Zero today.
Yep.
But Ninjas in Pajamas, they were supposed to sub out two players because two players didn't get their visa. I don't think they were able to get those two players, so I don't think we'll be seeing NIP in the finals. Unfortunately.
No. Well, speaking of Pro League, we do have some good news, at least, from North America. We have Dark Zero moving into the semifinals tomorrow as they defeated FaZe Clan 2-0. And I won't say handedly, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, despite it being despite looking at face values 2-0, both of the maps were pretty close, and it was from what I've seen, it was an excellent match. So
It was definitely
go ahead.
It was definitely a really good set of two maps. I mean, Dark Zero came out really strong. At one point, they were up 6-2, but then FaZe wasn't done. They came back and they pushed it 7-5. So as far as you could go before going into overtime kind of rules. But then the second map, it was. Actually, you know what? I can't remember quite how the second map went, but it wasn't quite as heavy-handed. Whereas 6-2, it was much closer as that went along. It was more back and forth, and not Rogue. FaZe Clan was able to string together back-to-back rounds earlier in map 2 than they were ever able to do in map 1. So it seemed like they were kind of turning a corner, but at the same time, Dark Zero just kind of took it away from them.
Yeah. From what I saw, Dark Zero, the reason that they won is because they, in those vital moments, their players made the right decisions. And that's what matters. You know, it doesn't matter how well your team plays. When it comes down to like those vital situations, if you don't make the right decision, you lost. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I showed you the hot and cold clip from map 1 when the 1 versus 3 is Maestro, and just an insane clutch play right there, because that was a bit of a pivotal round where it could have given FaZe a lot more momentum. But then also just the commentary from the casters calling out that they had like 3 different attacking strategies for the same location attack sites, and so like being able to be really varied and be especially effective at gathering information and not being able to be starved out, that seemed to be the biggest difference in the two play styles on when both teams were on attack, is that FaZe just seemed to get stalled out faster than what Dark Zero was able to do. Dark Zero was always able to have that line in for intel, except for on the rounds where they just completely blew it, or they got called out on a run out or a peak early as soon as the round started. So outside of that, like, it just seemed like they did a much better job at gathering information.
Yeah, and that play by Hot and Cold, when I was saying that, like, it comes down to those right and wrong decisions. He made the exact right decision. So the two choices that he had in that situation, with him being one shot and the entire the other team being one shot as well. So it's a 1v3 situation, everyone being at that 8 or below health, 8 HP and below. He could have stayed there in his position in the corner of the room and challenged them all with Zelda. Or he could have rotated when they weren't looking, which he did, and the other team assumed that he was still in the same spot, and so they went to go challenge him, and they were like, oh, he's not here, and that's when that guy started planting the bomb, or the diffuser, I'm sorry, don't plant the bomb. He started planting the diffuser, which then Maestro was able to just use his evil eye to zap the guy to deny him, because they were all at 2 HP, so after he was able to, he went around, picked off the line, zapped the planter, and then he downed the planter, and then he was able to pick off the last guy trying to run over. The entire time, they had no idea where he was.
Yeah,
because they didn't see him rotate, and that was the decision of a lifetime right there. And that was the difference between the two teams. So
I want to hear the comms on Dark Zero in that moment. I want to know how much information they were feeding him, or if it was just dead silence.
I would imagine that they were feeding him a lot of intel, because that Maestro cam was sitting there, facing the whole room. As you
someone could have told him that someone was planting the diffuser, and then he just switched over, took over. Yep. Okay.
That's probably 100% exactly what happened.
But I mean, could you imagine ducking behind that desk and just being told switch to the camera and just being like, there's two other guys, there's one other person out there, just waiting. Like you could just mouse click done and the round's over, and there's nothing you can do because you're pulling up your cell phone.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there was nothing. He had no other choice.
Yeah.
He had to go on his camera and deny that defuse, because if they did manage to get that diffuser down, now it's one guy with 5 HP versus 3 guys with 5 HP, and he's still got to defuse the bomb. So that puts you in an even worse position.
2v1 retake where he's pincered in between two guys at the same time, and you can't watch both at the same time like that.
Yeah, and honestly, and that having the diffuser down would force the Maestro to come out of hiding, and that's, I think, what they wanted to do, was force him out of hiding. But they didn't. He denied it, so he didn't have to. Which is good for him. So
Clutch round, huge highlight. I'll put it in the show notes. Outside of that, and then we have tomorrow's semifinals to look forward to. We got, I believe, actually the majority of the tournament to look forward to tomorrow. And then,
as we speak, we have the Navi versus
wild card.
Wild card, yes. The Navi versus wild card match right now. So
wild card ended up taking map 1.
Wild card, okay.
Or I'm assuming last I saw it before we started, they were up 6-1. So
they were up 6-1. Okay.
6-1 against Navi. Second place, ANZ group. Just taking it to Navi.
Dang, okay.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how that set wraps up. Is there anything else that you would like to put out there tonight?
Let me think here. CR6. We can talk about teams and practicing and all that stuff, what we talked about pre-show.
Oh, yeah.
So you said you wanted to talk about, what was it again? I forgot the exact phrasing.
Just being like how there's two teams, like CU Boulder, Texas A&M, Bronco Esports, UGA. They all have multiple teams in CR6. What does that benefit the two teams being able to practice with each other? Being that like CU Boulder Gold and CU Black are very different talent-wise, one being Open Division, one being Premier League, but they still have that opportunity to learn from each other. Like, what's that like from your perspective now that like A&M has two teams as well? What have you kind of gleaned from having that multiple team setup?
Having the multiple team setup is, I couldn't really tell you if it hurts or benefits the team. I would say it's more of a benefit, because now you have essentially, okay, if they're a good enough secondary team, that you have a good scrim partner that you can play against, that's not going to divulge your strategies to other teams. You can kind of keep everything in house. You can kind of exchange information against the other teams. Now you can also kind of brainstorm together. Now, instead of having 5 people to brainstorm strategies, you can, if you really wanted to, you could use the other team. Now you have 10 people brainstorming strategies, and you can kind of share them amongst one another. But I think the most important thing is having that consistent practice team. Not a lot of teams are faithful to practice or scrims. But if you're in the same school, you're more than you're more apt to practice with that other team. So having a consistent practice is probably the most important part of competition. Of being competitive is practice, practice, practice. You run one thing over and over and over and over again until you master it. What I hear a lot of teams is, oh, our cafe is good. Let's go. Let's practice. Let's practice Philip. No, you need to master that map. Your entire team needs to know that map. Needs to know their roles and their strategies like the back of their hand before you start to master another one.
I mean, I think back to that hot and cold clip. Like, how many times did they practice Maestro on that site, and the awareness of positioning the camera, positioning Maestro himself, and where are safe places to rotate to?
Exactly. They've probably mapped out every single rotation option that he has, and he has probably thought about what to do if X situation happens. They run that map day in, day out. They run every map day in, day out. When they do scrims, sometimes they do 3 to 5 maps per team that they scrim, and they scrim, I would say, probably like 8 times a day.
Damn.
Sometimes they scrim 5 hours a day, sometimes they scrim 8 hours a day. It just depends on how many scrim partners they can find. So, but yeah, that's the reason that they all know what to do. They know exactly what to do is because they practice their ass off, and they just, they have their dedicated roles. So, that's one piece of advice that I have for their teams is to assign roles, practice in those roles. Don't deviate from those roles unless you absolutely have to. Because once you get used to those roles, you're going to start synergizing a lot more because now you understand what each other are supposed to do, and now you have a better understanding of what you're supposed to do. And that's going to help you in the long run, is to stay on one spot. Now, if you decide if like 2 guys are not very good at their role, switch them up. If they're better at that role, then stick with it. That's what practice is for. Is you find the best position for your teammates. That's the whole point of practice. And once you find those best positions, and now you start to practice in those positions, and you start to master them, and you start to master the maps and your strategies that you come up with. What to reinforce. Sometimes people come up with more than one strategy per site on a map. So now let's say you have 3 different options per site on a map. Now you've got to practice all three variations of one site. You need to master all of those, because say your captain, beginning of the round, at the beginning of the round, hey, we're doing variation C. If you don't know variation C, you're hurting your teammates because they don't know it. So,
How dare you want to prepare multiple ways of playing this game?
Yeah, and people are like, that's so much work. Well, if you use the same strategy on a site every time you play that map, people are going to know exactly what you're doing.
I mean, it would be like saying that every time you're on the 50-yard line, you're always going to just do a Hail Mary. Like, that's not going to get you anywhere. You might get 1 out of 50 attempts, but 49 out of 50, it's going to be bad for you.
Yeah, and if teams come in VOD review you, and you're one trick pony for every single site, they can literally write down.
Yeah, I mean, we saw
plan what strategy you're running, and then all they have to do is counter strat, and then you've lost.
And I mean, you mentioned that with the Challenger League teams last podcast. the Challenger League teams come in, they're hyper aggressive because the Pro League teams don't have any information on them, so they can get away with it. But then when those Challenger League teams are in the Pro League and the other teams start learning that, oh, they're just really aggressive, we know how to play against that now. The one-trick pony does not take you very far.
Exactly.
And I mean, just like any other competitive form or game or sports or anything, it is work. It's work if you want to be the best. If you want to win, you have to put in the time, and your results are going to show just how much you put in. I mean, you want to look at traditional sports stars, look at LeBron James. Like, you just see him being the celebrity he is now. What you don't see is him waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning shooting free throws for 2 hours every day since he was 16 or since he was 8 or whatever. You don't see the work. Put in the work.
Yeah, exactly. And then like we're talking about, it translates exactly over to R6. You know, a lot of these guys are like, man, like I wish I had the amount of aim that this guy has. Well, you know, all you see is him playing. You don't see what he does off stream. That guy could be, he's probably, you know, sitting there, you know, doing like aim trainers or, you know, whatever it might be for hours on end to get to where he is. You know, it's all about hard work, and these guys have put it in. And if you want to get to that position, then you've got to put in that hard work as well. And you've got to be ready to put in that hard work.
Amen. I 100% agree with that. That's absolutely the right attitude someone has to have if you're going to go into a competitive circuit. Well, I think that's a solid note to end on. Is there any shout-outs you like to give or ways people can follow along with your content that you would like to put out there?
Yeah, sure. If you guys don't already know, I run a YouTube channel that puts out Siege, like tips and tricks on how to become better, and you know how to be better in your role and those different types of roles. And I actually have a new video coming out next week, probably like Monday or Wednesday. So be on the lookout for that one. If that's at all interesting to you, if that doesn't interest you, that's fine. If that's something that interests you, be sure to check out my channel and watch my videos. I think my Twitter handle, if you're on Recall Stream, is right below my face. I think. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
If you're on my channel, my Twitter and my YouTube are right below my face as well. And also Joe's stuff, his Twitter and his Twitch channel are right below his face. So be sure to go give him a follow as well on both his sites. If you go to his Twitter, he also has a link in his Twitter bio that has the master link to all his different stuff, and like the Anchor FM and all the podcast stuff and his other podcasts and all that greatness. So be sure to go give a listen to those as well.
Well, thanks for that. And yeah, as he mentioned, I'm pretty much at Warlock Recall on every platform out there, and you can find additional links on any of those platforms that you're comfortable with. Only thing else I can put out there is if you have CR6 or just Rainbow Six commentary and feedback for the podcast that you would like to share, be sure to leave your messages with the podcast, just like our guest Arctic from CU Boulder Gold. You can leave messages at anchor.fm/checkyour6/message. And I'll also encourage you to check out my other podcasts, Summoning Hour and Call of the Sea. Call of the Sea being the fan cast dedicated to the Seattle Call of Duty franchise league team, the Seattle Surge. And the Summoning Hour is focused on a lot of the issues and development of collegiate esports. So be sure to check those out and leave your feedback as appropriate. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Oh, you got more.
One more thing I forgot to mention for our people watching on Joe's channel. I actually have moved from Twitch to Mixer. I don't know if I mentioned this last time. I have made the move from Twitch to Mixer. Go to mixer.com/syntaxgg, one word, and you'll find me there. So that's it.
Awesome. There we go. Thanks for joining me. It was another good conversation. We'll have to talk more about the Pro League tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you everyone for stopping by and listening.
Take it easy, everyone.